Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Wonderful Wednesdays with Wendy. I'm your host, Wendy Wotecki, the Parent Support Connector at Mission Empower. Mission Empower is Erie County's Community Parent Resource Center. We are here to serve and help you in all of your educational needs. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Jan Stork and she is from Make-A-Wish. Welcome, Jan.
Thank you, nice to be here.
Thanks for coming. I also have brought on Jessica Nugent, my outreach coordinator at Mission Empower, because they have a very special relationship. You see, Jan has the amazing job of granting wishes. So
I'm very, very lucky. And Jessica and I used to work together, and we did a wish for her son.
Right. So let's start at the beginning with you and Make-A-Wish.
Okay.
So how did you land a job at Make-A-Wish?
It's somewhat of an interesting story in that the person that had my job before me, I had met at a conference or at a workshop. And a couple days after the workshop, she gave me a call and said, my health is requiring me to leave this job. And I know we've only met once, but I think you'd be perfect for this job. And I said, I know nothing about Make-A-Wish, which shocks me now to think that I knew nothing about Make-A-Wish. But I interviewed for the job, fell in love with the organization and the people that work there, and I've been there for nearly 25 years.
Mm-hmm. That is very honorable. I mean, when you love your work that much, it doesn't feel like work, does it?
It doesn't. It's every day I wake up knowing somehow I'm going to make a difference in a child's life, and there's no better feeling than that.
I was just going to say that we also at Mission Empower make really big differences in children's lives. Parents come to us in crisis, and when they're coming to you, they're coming in real crisis.
Yes.
Some of your situations are very dire and some of them not so immediate, but still there's obviously a serious underlying medical condition. Can you give me a little bit of an indication about what qualifies you for a wish?
Yes, so, and Jessica knows as well because that's the area she worked in when she worked with us, but any child between the ages of 2.5 and 18 who has a diagnosed critical illness. And we really term that where there's a possibility but not a certainty that they will survive their 18th birthday.
Okay.
And so when they come into our lives, when we meet them, their illness has really taken over their life.
Right.
And they have no control. Their illness determines if they're going to school, if they can play outside, how many days they'll be in the hospital. And so we come in and we give them some control back. And we say, if you could go anywhere, if you could meet anyone, if you could have anything, what would your wish be? And it's your wish. It is not your parents' wish. It is not your siblings' wish. It is not your classmates' wish. This is your wish, and you get to decide.
I really, really like that. I also know some other families that have had wishes that when we start talking about the amazing things that you all can do, I'll share then. But so how long does the process actually take? And actually, who can nominate a child for a wish?
Anyone can nominate a child for a wish, or refer, as we say. The family just has to be aware of the referral.
Okay.
Because there is still, even after as many years as we have been around, there is still a very common misperception that we do wishes for children who are dying, and that simply is not the case. More than 80% of our children who have had wishes are still living today. So we like to think, and not just think, we know that what we do makes a difference in giving children the hope they need to continue fighting, the strength they need. And we've seen it time and time again that children continue to do well and survive, or maybe live a longer life than they normally would have because of their wish. That's amazing, honestly. And plus the benefit to the family as a whole, because you frequently have siblings involved and extended family. And we know that when an illness affects a child, it doesn't just affect that child. Mm-hmm. It affects every member of the family in different ways. The parents are usually apart because one is at a hospital with a child, the other one is home working, taking care, making sure there's money to pay for all these treatments that the child has to undertake. And so we give them an opportunity to come together as a family again. And that's one of the most common comments that we hear from families when they return from a trip is, you allowed us to be a family again. You gave us an opportunity to come together and remember what it was like. And we had joy, we laughed, to hear those things and know what a difference it can make to a family is really rewarding.
I can only imagine. So the process is you are referred.
Yes.
And so the referral comes to your office.
Yes.
How widespreading does your office cover?
We cover 7 counties.
Oh, wow.
In Northwest Pennsylvania. And obviously our office isn't here, but our chapter headquarters is in Pittsburgh. Okay. And our chapter covers 57 counties in Pennsylvania and all of West Virginia. So we have a lot of counties. We do, when there's not a pandemic.
When there's not a pandemic. Social distancing.
That's right. We do somewhere between 700 and 800 wishes a year through our chapter. And our office probably does between 60 and 80 wishes a year just out of Erie.
Out of Erie alone. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the referral comes in.
Yes.
Does it go into the national or your local, or does it come directly to you? Like, how do you
Both.
get to the correct?
Right now, most of our referrals come through an online portal.
Okay.
And it is distributed to our outreach person that works with the family. So she'll review it. We'll get in touch with the doctor that's treating the family, find out how serious the illness is or the condition is. And then together we make that determination as to whether or not the child will qualify for a wish.
Okay.
If they qualify, we reach out to them immediately and assign volunteers and meet with the family. If for some reason they don't qualify, first we look at what are the reasons, and is it because the illness is not critical? That's good news. Mm-hmm. And we tell the family we have other organizations that may be able to help you. So we always give them somewhere else they can go, so it's not a dead end if they don't qualify for a wish.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. That's important.
Yes.
That's super important.
Yes. And so if they do qualify, we assign a team of volunteers, always 2. It protects Make-A-Wish, it protects families. Mm-hmm. Everything's always in teams of 2. And they go to the family's home and meet with the child and the parents. And we usually have one volunteer talk directly with the child and fill out some paperwork about what are their favorites. What's their favorite color? What's their favorite food? What's their favorite game? Their favorite class? And then the parents do all the boring paperwork with us about who's the doctor that's treating them, what's the family dynamic, and then together we work with the child to say, what is your wish? Sometimes they ask for things we can't do. But most times, as you can imagine, Disney World is our most popular wish.
Right.
And so I would say almost 50% of our children choose to go to Disney World.
Really?
Yes. And we like to say, and Jessica knows this firsthand, but I've had families say, I don't want my child to pick Disney because someday we'll take them to Disney. And I say, that's wonderful, and I'm glad you can do that, but you should know, nobody, and I mean nobody, can do Disney like Make-A-Wish can do Disney.
Right, yes, I've seen.
And so we go over what types of things the children receive because they're traveling through Make-A-Wish. So they stay at a very special resort called Give Kids the World. Mm-hmm. And they have breakfast, lunch, they can have dinner there, all their meals are provided. You can get, and it's not like, okay, I have to eat at 5 o'clock, so I have to be back. No, you can stay at the parks until 9, come home at 9, and there's a pizza place open that you can get pizza from. And it's really nice. Every day they come home, there are gifts for them in their condo. Everybody has their own house condo where they can stay. And there's a mayor of the village, Mayor Clayton. He's a big giant bunny, and his wife, Miss Mary.
Aww.
And they can schedule a nightly tuck-in from the mayor or his wife, which is adorable. He's Mayor Clayton is very funny and jokes around with the kids, which is just beautiful. And yeah, the families absolutely love it when they do it. And probably one of the most important things, again, because of the population that we work with, the kids themselves tire out easily many times. So they have a special pin that they wear. Together with their Make-A-Wish pin, they get a Give Kids the World pin, and they get to go to the front of every line.
Yes.
And if they are on a ride that they like and say, I'd like to do this a second time, no problem, stay right where you are. Or would you like to change? Would you like to be at the front instead of the back? So it's really wonderful that they do that. And it's not just Disney. All the parks down there do that. Universal Studios, SeaWorld, Gatorland. You can go to Gatorland. There are a lot of different things that you can do. But that's really a wonderful perk for our families, that they don't have to wait in long lines.
And I have to say that, generally speaking, I've never seen a different guest get upset about seeing that, because when you see they're on a wish,
yes,
everybody's like, they're on a wish.
And it's actually quite the opposite. I think the families feel guilty
Oh, I'm sure.
That they get to go to the front of the line. Like, we could probably wait. It's not that big of a deal, not realizing that sometimes the wait's 2 hours. And if you have a child that tires easily, you do 2 or 3 rides and you'd be done for the day.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So we want them to be able to enjoy every single minute that they're there without having to worry about things like that.
That's awesome. That really is so cool. I know nobody does it better. We'll talk about it in a little bit with Jessica. So, what are the limitations to a wish? Because, I've heard that there's been, some really interesting things.
There have been some really interesting wishes, and we talk about that a wish is only limited by the child's imagination.
So cool.
And for the most part, that's true, but we do obviously have to be first fiscally responsible.
Correct.
So we can't do a wish that might cost $25,000 or $100,000 because then we wouldn't be able to do other wishes. Right. And so our average cost of wish is about $4,400 because we get a lot of people, we don't pay for tickets to Disney or Universal Studios, those are all donated. Right. So when you take that into account, we can keep our wish cost low, which is really nice. And I'm sorry, I can't remember what we were talking about. I kind of got off on a tangent there.
Donated air miles,
yeah,
and all of those
keeping
things
that cost
help.
down, like your partners, your outreach partners.
Yes, yeah. So we're very fortunate that we can do that. We were talking about only limited by their imagination. So there are some things that we don't do. For instance, we don't do construction. When I first started at Make-A-Wish 24 years ago, we did do a little bit of construction, but what we learned quickly, we didn't do it well.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so if you can't do it well, you shouldn't do it because that's not good for a family. And the cost became prohibitive to do any type of construction, and we couldn't always rely on the people that we were hiring to do the construction. Anybody who's been through construction, I'm sure, can completely understand that.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
that's one of the things that we don't do. We will not do anything that involves the use of firearms because of the safety of the child.
That makes sense.
And we will not purchase a car or a motorized vehicle. So an ATV, a car for a child, again, because of the liability involved with that.
That makes sense.
But we are good about saying, okay, that might be what you want. So you want a car, maybe somebody in your family has a car and we can pimp your ride. We can make it a better car. As long as the engine of the car is in good working order, we can then work with local partners to really make it a car that will be spotted anywhere they go and everyone will know it's that child's car.
Oh, I like it.
They are a lot of fun to do. They really are. And the kids are always surprised at how beautiful the cars look when they're done with them. So that's nice. And I had one child, I will never forget this, who initially his wish was for a car. I said, unfortunately, we can't do cars. And he said, well, then I think maybe I would like to go hunting. And I said, well, unfortunately, we can't do a hunting wish. And he said, how about an ATV? And I said, oh my God, stop talking. No. I said, unfortunately, we can't do that either. And he said, is that a redneck clause that you have? And I said, no, but I really like that saying. Yes. That's great. So we talked through it and said, why these things? Tell me what it was about these that made you want to choose those as your wish. So we talked together and then we came up with, we learned he likes to hunt, he likes to go camping, he likes to do all these things with his family, and he had to share a camper with his family. And we said, well, how about your own pop-up camper? To which he said, you can do that? Aww. And I said, yes, we can do that. And so that's what we ended up getting him, and it was the perfect wish for him. Mm-hmm. And it ended up being really nice, and as he said, I can go be a redneck on my own now.
Oh, adorable.
Sounds like my favorite kind of a kid.
That's right.
That's cool. What is the process of becoming a volunteer? Because I keep hearing you mention the volunteers. Yes. So volunteers and fundraising go hand in hand.
Well, and we are very much a volunteer-driven organization. We have a small staff. I mean, in Erie, we have 2.5 people that do this work out of 7 counties.
Including you?
Including me. Wow. Yes. And so we really rely heavily on our volunteers. They're the ones that go out, meet with the families, talk with the children about what their wish is. And then depending on the wish, they can be very involved. If it's a travel wish, most of it comes back on the staff and we have to plan things. But if it's a shopping spree wish or if it's a gift wish of some sort, the volunteers get very involved with that and make it fun. And we do parties for the kids to celebrate the wish when it's done. So we do a lot of shopping sprees. We do gifts like a camper or a swimming pool. This summer, as you can imagine, with the pandemic, gifts became very popular. We did a lot of puppy wishes. We did some kayaks and canoes and a fishing boat and all kinds of things like that, which are really wonderful. The only challenge we found is not only were our kids wanting these, but everybody else in the world wanted these things.
I was gonna say, how did you find kayaks?
Yes, and so that did become a challenge, and we're very fortunate because when we talk with people, we can say honestly, this is what this child is going through. If there's any way that you can move us up a little bit so that they can enjoy it this summer, they're very understanding about that. And while they don't want to put us ahead of other people, they will maybe bring in another person to do this so that they know it can be done in a quick turnaround time.
That's awesome. Once again, those outreach partners. So if you want to become a Make-A-Wish volunteer, how do you do that, Jan?
Well, you can reach out to us. Our office number is 868-9474. You can call and we can send you online some information about how to become a volunteer. And then our volunteers go through a half-day training session that we do, and they have to have clearances through nationwide clearances, and to make sure that they're good to serve and work with children directly. And once you complete those, then you're set. We team you with a seasoned volunteer. We never call them old. So a seasoned volunteer that's been around for a while and knows all the ins and outs, to train you for your first couple wishes until you're ready to kind of be the lead on your own. And it is extremely rewarding to go out and meet with these families and the kids and talk about the wishes and kind of be creative with what is it that we can do that makes, like Disney is Disney, but what is it about this wish that we can make so it's yours? It's not like every other wish, and Jessica can certainly talk about that with her son Trevin and what we were able to do with Trevin to make it really special for him, where his wish was not like anybody else's Disney wish.
Perfect transition. So the two of you, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you two can discuss about Trevin's wish and what happened and how you went about that. Because I think learning about the process, real live person here,
I know,
with you, because she started as a volunteer also after the wish,
yes,
and then transitioned into employment.
She's never getting away from us.
Nor do I think she wants to, honestly. So at this point, what can you tell me about how the process went between you guys?
Well, I think one of the things I remember most, and Jessica can certainly correct me, but when the volunteers first met with Trevin, his wish was to do something Star Wars related, and he knew that one of the parks in Florida had Star Wars. At the time, they were not owned by Disney, so I think they were elsewhere. And so, but Jessica said, and the family, what if he gets older and changes his mind? And that's a very valid point. And she said, what if he changes his mind? I said, he will. I mean, as kids get older, their wants and needs and wishes do change. But what we try to instill in families is that you want the wish to be part of the treatment. So it kind of partners with the treatment plan, that it gives the child hope.
Right.
And so remember that you don't want, now they're in remission and they've been in remission for 5 years and now they're getting a wish. And it in no way has the same meaning as it does while he's going through treatment or while they're having the worst time, depending on the illness, what they're going through. And we managed to get some tickets to a very special Star Wars event here in Erie. Jessica, you can tell them a little bit about that.
They did. They kept calling and they're, are you ready? Are you ready? And I would say, well, I don't know. And I was one of those moms. I can do Disney someday. I can take him to a Florida park at some point. This is not a over the top. I'll take care of it at some point. And I remember having many conversations. Trevin was quite young. He was 5, 6.
I think he was 5, yeah.
And very Star Wars obsessed. There was no doubt about it. That was his thing. And here we went to this Star Wars event locally in Erie, and he met with the stormtroopers and with Darth Vader, and had a picture of Peter Mayhew, who's Chewbacca, and and the fact that I know these things, but boy, mom, right? All these different things, and it lit something in him that he became very insistent. I want to go to Florida. This is what I want. And by the time we had made our trip, he was over 6, and the moment behind it. It was the right timing. I wanted to wait. I kept saying, no, let's hold on. Maybe when he's 10 or when he's 12 or but the timing was right. The timing was there when he was at his lowest point, and it was pivotal. It changed things for him to have those moments that here we are. He's 14 now, 5'9", and this huge young man. And
I remember when he wanted to be taller than me. That did not take long.
He's taller than me now. When does that happen? But there are these moments that even as we look back, and as even talking about prepping for today, and I said, you start to talk about this trip, we're 8 years later, and it's still, I could close my eyes and remember it as if it was yesterday. Aww. And it changed not just his life, it changed all of our lives. And I brought a few things with me, but of course, Jan has Trevin's Mickey, and he carried that Mickey Mouse everywhere, and Pluto signed the bottom of one foot, you can barely tell anymore. And Mickey signed the other foot, which is even worse. It's not even really there anymore.
Oh no, poor Mickey. Can't really see it.
No, not anymore. And interesting enough, Mickey doesn't even have a tail anymore. So he played with that thing and held that thing everywhere because it was a happy moment in his life.
I believe I've seen him in surgery pictures.
Yes, many surgery pictures, many trips to children's hospitals, many car trips, many times it was his moment of, he could look back at those moments of, like you said, we were a family. We had these happy moments in our lives, and he felt like royalty. There's nothing like it. He got his little airplane from the moment he stepped on the plane, and he did. The pilot met him and let him see the cockpit and took a picture with him, and he felt, just amazing about it. And he's a baseball lover, so of course his Star Wars baseball, pull both loves together. And being called on stage and wielding a lightsaber and Darth Maul, the real Darth Maul. And then, his lightsaber here, he has Darth Vader signed it. And
so cool.
This sits up in his room still to this day, and it is above the door in his bedroom, and he has it so that the words hang out.
I love that.
His
Kevin
Mickey,
used the Force. Yeah. Darth Vader.
His Mickey still sits there. And then this picture is one of my favorites because there's a moment in it.
He's so little.
I know. He's definitely not that tiny anymore. But this moment here, we were at a different park, and his sister was 2.5 at the time, his littler sister, and of course the whole family did go, and his little sister really was looking forward to going to see the dolphins. And if it was her wish, what she would have done, and at 2.5, boy, she had a voice. But some things never change. There's this moment where they're feeding the dolphins, and truly they're feeding them, and this was something so special for his little sister. There's not even a back to it anymore because she takes it to school regularly as her to show off. 11 years old now, and this is still one of her favorite memories because the trip was about not just her brother, but it did. They made her feel special. Those gifts that they left us, they left them for all the siblings. Yep. The girls, both of my daughters, there was never a moment that they felt left out. I was afraid of that. I was afraid that it would be very about the brother and not about the girls, and not at all. He wasn't real impressed when we saw Tinkerbell and she kissed him or some of those things, but boy moments.
Telling your secret.
I know. He's 14 now. He'll be okay. But there's just so many different moments. I think that when you hear the line, and there's a video on YouTube that anybody could search, if you run Trevin and Make-A-Wish, it will pop up, I'm sure. And when he found out about going on his trip, and he says, I've never been happy like this in my life.
Oh.
And see now.
I remember he was only 6, so he hadn't lived a lot of life yet at 6. But
And at 6 years old, for him just to know that what he dreams of more than anything in the world, and then to find out that the doctor said, well, we're going to subside a lot of your treatment while you're gone, and we're going to let you be a boy. You're going to be
a kid again.
Be a kid for the week, and go enjoy some time. So I think those moments, here I am 8 years later, and I can still tear up about these moments, and I still can say that they were very powerful, not just for him, but for all of us.
Well, and I think that's interesting, and something I've seen because I've been there so long. I learn so much from these kids, truly. And one of the things that impresses me most is that it's the child's wish, but for them, it's not just about them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's about other people. I mean, last year we had a girl who was 18 at the time who said, I want to go to Disney. Now, that's a little rare for kids who are 18. And we said, well, why do you want to go to Disney? She said, my siblings have had to be there for me and watch how I've suffered over the years, and I want to give them something back. Oh. I want to thank them for being the best sisters ever. And so it was more about doing something for them. I have a girl recently, we just did this is one of the wishes we did this summer. And when we asked her, she said, I'm really lucky, there's nothing I need. So I think what I'd like to do is I would like to give instruments to my band, my high school band, because I know there are kids every year that can't afford to get their own instruments. And so I don't want to know, I want you to work with the band director. I want whatever they need is what I want. And so we surprised her and had her come in, and we were able to purchase for them 16 clarinets.
Oh, wow.
For the high school band. And she said, when I was sick for an entire year, I rarely came to band practice, but that band was with me, and I got to feel their love. They gave support, and now I want to give that love and support back to them.
That's amazing. Those band groups, I'm
a band mom,
band geek, and it is its own posse. It is its own little pack of family that take care of each other. And what's fun about band is those freshmen, when you go in before you go into your freshman year, that summer before, you're being connected with seniors. So when you go into school, you know all these people, and it's just so embracing and warm. And I'm sure they took care of her the whole time.
That whole year that she was in treatment, they wore ribbons for the color of cancer that she had. And she said, I just knew. She said, I would get videos, and when I could go to band practice, they all made sure that I was okay and took care of me. And she said, that's a feeling that I wish everybody could experience, is knowing that you're loved and cared for.
That deeply, yes. That's awesome. So what have been some of your favorites? Now, I know I've heard Field of Dreams, because that's a local favorite.
Yes.
And I have another friend that worked with a different camper manufacturer, and they got a humongous camper. And Cabela's was in on it. It was a big camper with 4 bunk beds, and I mean, but the camper place was involved. Outreach partners,
yes.
And how important that outreach is. So, and this little girl now goes camping all the time because they used to tent camp, and she couldn't regulate her body temperature. She had to have AC and heat.
Right.
So it was the perfect thing
for her.
Well,
and it's interesting. So, my favorite wishes are usually wishes where I learn something. And so what's a favorite for me might not be a favorite for someone else. And one of my favorites is about a young man from Clarion who got a lift for his van. Now, to me, I would say, in fact, we kind of pushed back a little bit and said, a lift is really a piece of equipment. We're more about magic. We're more about that feeling of giving some joy. And I'm not sure this accomplishes that. And the volunteers, God bless them, kept pushing back to me saying, no, this is what he needs. His name is Kyle. This is what we need. And when we were done with that wish, I got a note from Kyle, and he said, I know that you thought this was a piece of equipment. It wasn't. It was my freedom. Because now that I could get in and out of my family's van, I have been to a ball game. I've been to Cleveland to see the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. All these places that he could never go to before because they couldn't get him in and out of a vehicle. And I thought, oh my God, Jan, you're so stupid. Of course.
Well, no, you just.
That was such a great learning lesson for me in that think outside the box. Put
Right.
yourself in this child's shoes and see what they're going through and what their life is like. And that was really special because of that I was able to learn why that was a good wish.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That really is.
Yes, and then we did another, again, a young woman from Clarion. She was 15, and she had ovarian cancer, which is very rare. Her name was Rachel, and she was very musically gifted. I mean, she played so many instruments, and again, in her high school band and in chorus. And so the instructor said, we'd really like you to learn the oboe. Nobody in the band can play the oboe, and I think you probably can do it. They had an old oboe that probably did not sound that good. And so she said, I have fallen in love with the instrument, and I want to learn how to play the oboe. And I want a real professional oboe. So again, I know nothing about oboes. I readily admit that. And so we reached out to our local Philharmonic, Erie Philharmonic, and said, would you help us, one, by helping us find a professional oboe, and two, could we present it to her at one of your concerts? We would like to do something special. And we call them enhancements. Do a little enhancement so that it's not just, here's your oboe. We want it to be special. And they said, we'd love to be a part of this. Is she any good? And I said, I don't know. I've never heard her play. I hear she's very gifted. And they said, would you invite her? If she's any good, we'd like her to play a song with us at one of our concerts.
Oh, wow.
So she came up, and they heard her and were blown away and said, we'd like her to play the entire concert with us. Not just one song. That's how gifted she was.
Wow.
So
At
the
15.
principal oboist worked with us to find an oboe and lent her one before the night of the event. And that night, the Erie Philharmonic provided tickets for anybody from Clarion that wanted to come, that knew the family, and sponsors and all kinds. We had quite the audience there, and to this day, they said it's the only performance where at the end of the performance, instead of politely clapping, there were people in the audience doing hoo, hoo, hoo. But it was probably one of the most emotional wishes I've ever been involved with. They presented her the oboe at the beginning of the concert, and then at the end, when they bring out, if you've never been to one, like the conductor leaves and all the soloists leave, and then they all come back one on one so you can clap for them.
Right.
And then they had her come out as the last person, and that place erupted in cheers, and she was crying. I was crying. I don't think there was a dry eye in the place. And again, wonderful. But for me, what was really great is I learned that she had quite a few recurrences of her cancer after this. And her mom said every single time she would have a recurrence, she would bring out the videotape that we had provided for her, again, donated photos and videos, and she would play along with it. It was her comfort. It was her way to relax and to give her strength. And she said it's what helped her fight this illness time and time and time again. So in some ways, it was the wish that kept on giving for her. And what a powerful testament that is, that a wish can provide that to a child.
Very therapeutic for her to go
Yes.
back and,
Yeah.
I love
About
that.
5 years after her wish, she passed away, and it was devastating. We're very fortunate that more than 80% of our kids go on to live long, healthy lives. But those 15 to 20% that we lose are devastating.
I imagine.
Nobody should have to say goodbye to a child. No one should have a child die before them. And it happens all the time.
But at the same time, you left her family with some beautiful memories.
It's one of the things, I get a lot of comments when people find out that I work at Make-A-Wish, it must be so sad. And it's really quite the opposite, because first, I like to have a happy atmosphere at work. And so we try to enjoy what we're doing at all times. Certainly there are sad times, but what I've learned is I will go to a funeral home, and when you walk in, everyone's down and everyone's depressed, and then you walk in and it reminds them of something positive, and all of a sudden you're hearing laughter, you're seeing smiles, And they say the fact that you gave us memories that will last us a lifetime, that we can remember of our child, is something we can never repay you for. And that's a wonderful feeling. You can see why I love my job.
Right.
It's wonderful to know that we can provide that to families.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What an amazing, amazing experience you get to have day after day.
I do, every single day.
And it's probably never the same thing twice.
It isn't. That's why I love it. Every day is different.
Which is so cool. I'm going to look over here and see if we have any questions or comments from our GoToMeeting panel.
Are there any financial restrictions?
Well, as I had mentioned earlier, we have to be fiscally responsible. So we don't look at, oh my gosh, this wish costs this much. Absolutely not. What we will look at is say, okay, you've asked for this much of something. Can we pare that down a little bit?
Right.
Is there, if you are going, for instance, and this is how long I've been there, I want a computer for editing purposes. I want to do movies someday. So what they looked at, as you can imagine, 20 years ago, computers were outrageously expensive. I mean, we used to do computers as their own wish. Now they're part of a shopping spree. But they used to be their own wish. And so what this child had put together was over $25,000. And we looked at it and thought, we can't spend that much. So what we asked is put it in order of want. So the computer obviously is the first thing, you have to have that. So put it in order of, if we can't get you something, what is it we can't? And then we also then go to our community partners to say, can you discount, can you donate? My favorite saying when I talk with people, they're like, well, what do you need from us? How much do you have to spend? And I always say, well, let's start at zero, and then we can work our way up if we need to, but I really don't want to have to pay for it. And so you'd be surprised at how often that works. But shh, don't tell anybody.
It's our secret, right here.
So we can then sometimes get the cost down. So we don't really have a cost that we will exceed, but we look at it to be fiscally responsible to both our donors and to our families, that we don't want to have to say no to a child because we don't have the funding in order to do a wish.
Does the family have to have any financial?
No. So we do not say a family has to be at this level of income in order to get a wish. It doesn't matter what your income is. And what we've learned is that regardless of the money that someone may have, it doesn't help their child get better.
No, it does not.
Your income does not impact your child getting sick, nor does it impact the feeling that the child has while they're sick. And so that's why we don't take it into account. And I've had families who say, we really don't need anything. And we feel bad because anything our kids need, we can provide. And I always say to them, well, first, this isn't for you. It's for your child. And there are things that we can do that as a parent, you just can't. I mean, it's that old, until you hear it from somebody else, you're not going to believe it. So for a child, for a family to say, oh, you're going to be fine, or this will be nothing, or something along, if they hear it from us instead, like this is going to be a magical event, or this is going to be something you'll never forget. It's different coming from someone at Make-A-Wish than it would be from your parent.
Right.
And so we can go in and say to a child, we're going to give you some control back. Sometimes the parents can't do that. They don't have that gift of being able to give the child control back on their lives. We do. And that's why that's important. And then I say to those families as well, if you really feel that you want to give back once the wish is done, consider donating for another child's wish.
Which transitions us into my next question. So, the fundraising.
Yes.
I know, nonprofit world, it is your number one thing that you always have to take care of. That's the dirty housekeeping.
Yes, it is.
So what do you have right now in the world of COVID going on for fundraising? How can the community support Make-A-Wish?
Well, we, as with most people, most of our events now are virtual. We have some over the summer that we're able to be socially distanced in order to have those, but we also, one of the things I think people don't realize is we rely very heavily on people in the community holding events for us. And because we had more than 70 events cancel over the summer, we lost close to $1 million in funding that we would normally be receiving during the summer months. Now that's chapter-wide, and our chapter, but still, our chapter budget is about $7 million. So to lose $1 million is huge.
That's a hit.
And our travel wishes are on hold right now, again, for the safety of the children. But when it's safe for them to travel again, all of those wishes that we've put on hold, which has been more than 150, are going to want their wishes to come true now. So we are still fundraising because we don't want them to have to wait one more day.
Right.
When they want to go and it's safe, we want them to go. So we have a campaign every December called Light Up a Child's Life, and that's probably our next biggest one that's coming up. We normally partner with the Mill Creek Mall and Star 104. We will be partnering with Star 104 again this year, but most likely we will not be able to go to the mall because of the pandemic.
Correct.
We invite kids to come and talk, and we can't have them in a place that they could become infected with anything. And so we most likely will have to change that up a bit, and we'll be doing some things online through that. At any time, they can go online and make a donation.
Okay.
Our chapter website is Greater PAWV, which is for Pennsylvania, West Virginia, .wish.org. So Greater PAWV.wish.org. And you can go on, that money is distributed by zip code. So if you're from this area and want to make a donation, it stays in Northwest Pennsylvania.
Okay, perfect.
Making sure that we can do wishes for our kids right here in Northwest Pennsylvania. If you are thinking, geez, maybe I could do an event, do an event. One of the things that we loved about, that we learned about, I love nothing about the pandemic, but what I do love is how our volunteers have kind of risen to the occasion.
Yeah.
And so we met with them and said, right now we're not doing wishes. And so we'd like to reach out and ask you, will you help us with fundraising? Before I started at Make-A-Wish, it was very much a grassroots organization, and we still are to some aspect. But back then it was volunteers doing sub sales and pizza sales and holding bake sales and collecting from their neighbors. And so we said, let's go back to that grassroots fundraising and see what we can do. And we've had one volunteer who said, I want to partner with the other volunteers in my county. They live in Crawford County. And I'm going to collect aluminum cans.
Okay.
And we said, okay. So she started a Facebook page and now has over 600 members. They've raised more than $3,000.
Wow.
More than $3,000. And it is one of those things that it started with this small group, and it is now like this. And people are donating money. People are donating refrigerators. People are donating anything that has aluminum in it. And it has really taken off. And it's so inspiring to see these people coming together for one common good. And they were getting so close. I said, let's choose a wish. Let's pick one wish that you can grant with this money. And they're like, really? Do you think we could do that? And I said, I know you can. I am witnessing. When they first started, I'm like, oh my God, if you can raise $500, I will be thrilled. And then it was like, if you think you can raise $1,000, that would be great. And then all of a sudden they were getting close to $3,000. And I said, I no longer have any doubts about what you can do. Whatever you set your mind to is what you can do. And $4,400 is the average cost. So if you can raise $4,400, and she said, we'll do it. I just know we'll do it. They've had anonymous donations. It's really inspiring, and they haven't changed. It's not like they've said, okay, now we're going to add another fundraiser. Mm-hmm. They've just grown the group, and they call themselves Wish Warriors, and they're out there spreading the word and making sure that people are donating their aluminum cans.
That is just amazing.
It is. And we have another volunteer. She and her family normally do a big garage sale. And trust me, it's not a garage anymore. They actually have like a campground that they use now because it's gotten so big. They've usually raised about $8,000 a year through this event. I know. But again, it started small, and people just heard about it, and people will call her and say, I know your garage sale's not for 8 months, but I have this. Do you want it? And she stores everything. But she couldn't have it this year because of COVID. She said, I'm going to make masks. She has sold close to $2,500 worth of masks.
Wow.
At $5 a piece. Talk about grassroots fundraising.
That's amazing.
Yes.
That is amazing.
So people who think, I can't do something, what could I possibly do? It's amazing what you can do, and sometimes it's as easy as I'm going to set up an online fundraising page and invite my friends and family to donate to it. Whether it's, because a lot of people have the mindset, I can probably only give $10 or $20. I didn't have that $10 or $20 yesterday.
Right.
So if I can have it today, that helps me grant more wishes. And if you combine all those people giving $10 and $20, in no time at all, we'll have enough for a wish. And so that's what I love about the pandemic, is how people have really come forward and shown us what they're capable of doing in such a positive way.
That is super cool. Okay, it looks like we don't have any questions out there in our GoToMeeting. So at this time, I am going to thank Jan Stork from Make-A-Wish for coming on Wonderful Wednesdays with Wendy. It was a joy to hear about
Well, this was
Make-A-Wish,
great. Thank you.
And we appreciate, and hopefully at some point we can help you out with some volunteering, or I think the last time I volunteered with being pretzels and chocolates at an event. That was for a donation.
Again, at an event that can't happen now because of the pandemic.
Yes, but how creative
Yes.
that your staff gets and your volunteers. So we will definitely speak soon.
Well,
Because what a great
and for those
organization.
who are listening or watching, again, if you want to become a volunteer, if you want to refer a child, or if you want to donate, just call us, 868-WISH.
868-WISH. Easy peasy. Thank you, everybody, for joining in, and we will see you next time.